Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our branch meeting. Apologies for the late start, having a bit of technical difficulties. So before we get started on our presentation as advertised with Mr. Lange, we do have a very special guest from IOSH, and I will turn you over to Jason Maitland, who would introduce this very special guest, and then we will hear a brief presentation and then get to Mr. Lange's presentation on MARPOL. So Jason?
Hi, thanks for that, Rishi. Good afternoon, good day, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. As Rishi mentioned, we do have a special guest in our midst. It is my pleasure to introduce the brand spanking new, I guess we can still say, president of IOSH, Louise Huskin. Louise became the president in November 2021 after serving as vice president for 3 years and president-elect for 1 year. Prior to this, she was chair of the Chiltern branch and remained an active member of the consultancy sector group. There's a lot in her bio, but I don't think I will do that due justice. But what I can do is turn over to Louise, and she will tell more about herself and bring greetings from IOSH. Louise?
Jason, it's fantastic to be here. Hello, everybody, and good afternoon. It's always a huge delight for me to come to the Caribbean branch. And do you know what? That COVID, this pandemic has stopped me from traveling and coming over there to see everybody. But it's fantastic to be here, and I'm just going to give a little bit of an introduction. Yeah, it's my first quarter as IOSH president, and I keep saying to everyone, it feels like I'm drinking from a fire hose. So I've certainly been very, very busy. For any of you that know me, you know that our branches and our groups have a very, very special place in my heart. I'm still an active member of my local branch, and I'm actually going to go to my first face-to-face meeting there next week. So it's from me to you guys. I know how much work and effort that goes into putting on these sessions, and it looks like you're going to have a fantastic session with Mr. Lange this afternoon, and I know how much work you put into supporting each other, so a massive thank you from myself for everything that the committee is doing here this afternoon to support our members in the Caribbean. So yeah, I'm still fairly new as IOSH president, and I very much have a dual role. So as well as being the president, I'm also the chair of council, which is the representative body of the institution and part of our governance structure. And I don't know if Ria's on the line this afternoon, but Ria is in the Caribbean and she's a brand new member of our council, which means that you have somebody at the table representing you in the Caribbean on council, which is fantastic. Now, the role of president is very much ambassadorial, and I'm supported by a presidential team consisting of 6 vice presidents, myself as president, and the president-elect and immediate past president. So we're all very busy serving in our ambassadorial duties. As chair of council, I'm focused on raising council's profile, effectiveness and influence. So council represents our members, and I've created work streams within council which are going to determine strategic priorities. And from here, we can have that influence and give advice and guidance directly into the board. So it's an exciting time for me at the moment, and it's important for me for our members to feel that they're empowered to make a difference at what is a challenging time in the world as we come through and out of the pandemic. So In terms of my role as president during my year, myself and the presidential team are concentrating on themes which focus on how members can support their organisations to add value to businesses by creating inclusive, healthy and psychologically safe workplaces, utilising modern leadership skills. So compassion, creativity, curiosity, kindness and courage, rather than command and control. And through this, I hope we will create teams who trust one another. And with trust comes innovation, and people will put their best selves forward, taking care of themselves and those that they work alongside. The work I'm undertaking within council is creating this environment here too. So we are walking the talk internally as well. So I would urge everybody to have a look at the Catch the Wave campaign, which we're running at the moment and is showcasing the business benefits of being socially sustainable. And I think that directly links into your presentation that you have this afternoon. And from here, we're going to transform our professional narrative, demonstrating the value we add, helping us as health and safety professionals to fully articulate how we help to create more engaging places to work and do business. And via this approach, we will create inclusive cultures ready to tackle the very many complex issues our world is currently facing, where the only constant is change. As many of you know, I'm a keen advocate for equality, diversity and inclusion, with a particular focus on supporting women into leadership roles within our profession. And although I'm the 55th president of IOSH, I'm only the 7th woman. So I hope, and I certainly hope there will be others in this audience today and on this call who will follow my example and put themselves forward where this is their ambition, because we really are stronger when we are together. I will be supporting our future leaders community by demystifying volunteer roles so there is a clear pipeline into leadership for underrepresented groups. Visible mentorship and sponsorship will be key. I'm also excited to support our collaborations with the Commonwealth, the UN's International Labour Organization and the International Social Security Association. And we're we are working toward the next IOSH strategy and also celebrating 20 years of our charter. Now more than ever, we need global solutions for a common goal. In IOSH, we are nudging towards 49,000 members around the world, and we all have a common goal. Great things are rarely achieved by one person. Engaged teams can achieve extraordinary things, but global teams really can change the world, and it only takes just one conversation at a time. So Jason and the committee, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to say hello to everybody in your branch this afternoon, and do connect with myself and the presidential team. If there is absolutely anything that you need, we're here for you. And yeah, have a great session in the rest of the afternoon.
Thank you very much for that, Louise. Good overview of your role, the role of the president and the presidential team. And of course, you and the presidential team are always welcome to pop in virtually or in person.
Jason, you never know. You never know this year. This could be the year.
Looking forward to it. Looking forward to it, Louise. Thank you very much.
But yeah, it's always such a joy to come here, and thank you, and have a great afternoon, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, Louise. And I hand over to Rishi. Rishi will introduce our speaker for this evening. Rishi?
Oh, thank you, Jason. So we have with us this evening Mr. Courtney Lange, and Mr. Lange has been involved in the maritime sector for over 30 years and is currently very involved with flag and port state activities for several Caribbean countries. As a naval architect, he provides specialized consultancy through Tsunami Marine Limited, based in Trinidad, and currently serves as the chairman of the Maritime Sector Special Advisory Committee for the National Training Agency of Trinidad and Tobago. He has served on the advisory committee for the Maritime Faculty of the University of Trinidad and Tobago since inception. As a previous senior ship surveyor with Bureau Veritas and deck officer, this has given him the experience and knowledge to be actively involved in the development of the Caribbean cargo ship safety, small commercial vessel codes for the Caribbean through technical working groups of CMOU and IMO. In 1990, he was appointed as a government surveyor of ships on behalf of the Trinidad and Tobago Government Maritime Administration and has served in this capacity to date. However, currently he has been focusing on the development of shipping and marine pollution legislation in the region. He is committed to the protection of the maritime environment and the safety of lives at sea. So we're very happy to have Mr. Lange with us this afternoon, and I will turn you over to Courtney, who will give us a presentation on the role of MARPOL and its prevention of marine pollution. Courtney?
Thank you, Rishi. Thank you so much. First, let me echo the sentiment of your president and say that, yes, we in the IMO, which is the International Maritime Organization, we are also trying to incorporate women into the maritime sector. But enough said of that. I will try to take you all through as quickly as I can. The current issue that the world is facing regarding the prevention of maritime pollution and a snapshot as to, yes, where we're at and the things that we need to look at as HSE professionals in the world. First, let me say that even though your president spoke a lot about the issues surrounding the pandemic, there is a much more important issue that is going on right now, which is the world is at 1.25 degrees over the temperature it ought to be at. At 1.5 degrees, we reach a point of no return, and that affects our great-grandchildren and their children. So the prevention of marine pollution is something that is fundamental and something that we really got to embrace as health and safety professionals. The IMO has had a convention that embraces the prevention of marine pollution called MARPOL. And in this, I'm going to try and take you all through what is a humongous document in just a few minutes, I hope. So the convention itself on MARPOL embraces all the aspects of marine pollution as exists today, and its context is within 6 annexes. I'm going to try as best as I can to take you all through the gist of these 6 annexes, because the prevention of marine pollution and prevention of any pollution into our environment is fundamental to us as a planet and us as a species, making sure that we can arrest the effects of climate change. So the construct of this convention to try and address issues of climate change, and it has been in existence, as the previous slide showed, since 1973. The scientists are right, we've known it's coming. And the context is that we have 6 annexes. Annex I deals with the issues surrounding oil pollution and the prevention of oil pollution from ships. I'm a marine guy. Annex II deals with the control of pollution from noxious liquids. And all of the industrialized countries of the world produce some sort of noxious liquid in terms of our industrial bases and factories, etc. Annex III deals with the prevention of pollution from harmful substances in packaged form. Of course, we know that, for example, rat poison will kill rats, but it also kills dolphins. So there is an annex that deals with how do we prevent pollution from harmful substances in packaged form. Annex IV tries to address the issues of sewage. Not unfortunately, fortunately, I just flew to another country, won't tell you all where I am. And even though planes carry, let's say, the biggest jumbo jet, maybe 300 people, one passenger ship that is cruising around our oceans will carry somewhere around 3,000 to 5,000 people. That's a lot of crap. We got to control it. Annex V deals with the issue of garbage pollution and pollution from garbage. And that's not just a marine thing in terms of the ships. We seafarers try to be very responsible, but it's something that the world has to be focused on, because the runoff from the land in terms of plastics, etc., is a big story. And Annex VI deals with air pollution. Of course, let me just pause and say Annex V and the issue of garbage and the issue of plastics in our oceans is a humongous story. You know, I'm sure, and if nobody knows, the degradation of one little chubby bottle in the ocean takes 450 years. 450 years, that's a freaking long time. We've got a huge island in the Pacific of just plastics. And even when it degrades, it doesn't go away. It degrades to microplastics. And that's another big problem, because whales produce the majority of the oxygen. Whale crap is phenomenal with the plankton. And it actually produces the majority of our oxygen for our fragile little planet. But when they take in the microplastics, that's where we're having a problem. Air pollution, of course, we all know, greenhouse gases, the NOx, the SOx, the particulate matter, the VOCs. You know, we are experiencing, even here in the Caribbean, a humongous amount of climate change. And so the IMO, in its infinite wisdom, has been addressing this since 1973. Now, let me go on to some of the details of Annex I. Now, Annex I in MARPOL tries to deal with preventative measures that should be in place for the prevention of pollution of our seas by oil. Where I come from in Trinidad and Tobago, we're an oil producer. And of course, I don't know if many of you all know, but Trinidad held the unfortunate position of having the world's largest oil spill for many, many years, until it was overtaken by the Prestige naphtha. Of course, this caused a lot of ecological damage. We're all aware, because of things like the Amoco Cadiz, the Prestige, the humongous impact that pollution from oil can have on our shores. And so we've set up in the world an issue of having special areas which for technical and oceanographic reasons, we've had to consider those as a separate item, a separate entity, and make sure that the special areas of the world, these sensitive areas, are properly well protected. So Annex I sets out some sensitive areas in the world that we have held dear to us. Hopefully, one day we will see the Caribbean on this map for special areas. Now, some of the mitigating actions regarding Annex I to mitigate against this threat of these huge oil tankers having this influence on our environment is the IMO started an issue of let's start when the ships are being built. And let's start when ships are being built. Long ago, of course, before there was this problem, we had what are called single hull tankers, single hull ships carrying oil. And now we've gotten to an issue of ensuring that all of the ships that are carrying oil now have what is called a double hull. So should there be any problem with the oil tanks on this tanker, any spill, we hope as best as we can, risk assessments being done, be contained within the structure of the hull. And of course, you know, there are lots of rules, but to go with this, and as HSE practitioners, hopefully with time, I will capture your imagination in the marine sector, and any connectivity between your company and the maritime world, you will understand. Because HSE, of course, we're there to try and embrace the risk and mitigate against the risks of such issues. So as far as Annex I is concerned, number one, HSE monitoring during ship construction. Of course, yes, of course, they're ship surveyors, but you as HSE professionals may be involved in shipyards, ship repair yards, ship wrecking facilities. And of course, this is where I want you all to be conscious of, it starts at construction, and you all may be involved in mitigating measures for construction. I don't think we're building big ships in the Caribbean yet, but who knows? Another part of Annex I is the issue of the oil record book. The oil record book is a document that is put on board the ships where the seafarers record all activities to do with oil. Particularly in the ships, if you can imagine, we have issues where, you know, you've washed down the engine, or there's a hole in a fuel pipe, or there is some lube oil that's spilled. These all go into the ship, and we try to record it so that we can manage these residues of oil and make sure that they're properly taken care of. And it's within this book, the oil record book. The HSE control measure, of course, for this is, for if you're an HSE officer, to take a look at this book. It's not that complicated. All the explanations at the beginning, but to make sure that the ships are doing what they're supposed to do with their residual oils. Either in your home country, or if you have a foreign ship. Flag state relates to the ships that belong to our country. Port state relates to the ships from another country that come to yours. Okay, another area where the IMO has sought to mitigate against these measures for oil pollution from ships is contained in what is called the SOPEP manual. This is the Shipboard Oil Pollution Emergency Plan, and that's just for that reason. Unfortunately, we have accidents, we have collisions, we have the little oops. And for that reason, we've structured a manual that will help the captain and all the crew members take appropriate measures to mitigate against any accidents or any emergencies that may occur. So that's just so that you're aware, this is the SOPEP manual. What are the HSE control measures in case you ever come across this manual or in your normal work? Yes, of course. The documentation, the manual itself has a bunch of procedures and that the ship is to follow, and also contacts. And as HSE professionals, if you come across this, this is where you look for to see the procedures for emergency measures. A very important piece of equipment that is installed on all ships over 400 gross tons is the oily water separator. This is an interesting piece of equipment. This is the main way that we prevent any oils or residues that collect in the ship from getting into the ocean. It has a magical piece of instrumentation called a 15 ppm monitor, because we've determined, scientists have confirmed, that we do not want any oily water from any ship entering the ocean that has more than 15 parts per million of water by volume. So this magical piece of equipment actually does control any oily water residue from bilges or wherever, if the ship has got to get rid of that oily water, from making sure that not more than 15 parts per million of oil to water get into our oceans. Control measure, of course, the crews normally are pretty good at maintaining this issue. If you're involved in HSE and you come across this, there are both flag state and port state control issues surrounding the maintenance and operation of this piece of equipment, which is called an oily water separator. Okay, so that's what we have in Annex I. Here we go on now to Annex II. This is the body. In Annex II, we have pollution prevention for noxious liquids. What are noxious liquids? Well, the world decided, the IMO, through the IMDG code, categorize some really bad chemicals, and they call them category X, category Y, category Z, and other substances. Now, category X substances are that stuff that we must never let get into the ocean, and we have some measures for that. It causes definite death and to animals and any part of our ecosystem. We control those really strongly. Category Y, these are some stuff that, if they get in the ocean, they can be harmful to humans and any marine life. We still got to control those. Category Z are, those are stuff that if they come, I suppose if you spilled about 2 million gallons of good Angostura rum in the ocean, might have a little effect. Well, might have some pollution. So we still need to keep our eyes on these low pollution hazards. And there's another category, which is the stuff we don't know about. And it is requisite of every country to try, and if there are any industries that one of you HSE professionals may be working in that has any effluent that we haven't really analyzed, or we don't know the chemical, we don't know its effect on its environment, that every flag state can now interrogate that and decide whether we need to control how much of that gets into our oceans and our ecosystems. Again, I hope one thing that we're taking home here is we don't see any Caribbean area with all of these special areas that are set up in the world to properly mitigate against these effects. In Annex II, one area has been identified so far, which is the Antarctic area, of course, because of its flourishing marine life. So in Annex II, we have a different manual, which is called a Shipboard Marine Pollution Emergency Plan. This is a little different from a SOPEP manual, because with a SOPEP manual, we're just looking at residues of oil. However, in Annex II, we're looking at the body chemicals getting into the ocean. So there's a different manual set up for that. Some ships combine both, but this document, if you're HSE professionals, you need to interrogate it to make sure there are adequate procedures on board for dealing with noxious liquids, category X, Y, Z, or other substances. And of course, the control measures, of course, become kind of touchy for HSE professionals, that if you are working in industry connected to the marine environment, there's a little typo there, is by other substances, not ordinary substances, that we're sensitive to the fact that we need to analyze these and analyze the impact on our environment. Okay, so other mitigating measures to Annex II include what is called a Procedures and Arrangement Manual. These are for the chemical tankers and the ships that are carrying arsenic and ammonia and these body chemicals, that there are a bunch of procedures that are put into the Procedures and Arrangements Manual. And of course, as HSE professionals, if you interact with the ships, this is a good manual to look at to see what procedures the ships are using, not just about putting the stuff ashore, into the ocean, but instead, you've got that residue of arsenic left in the ship. How are you going to treat with it? You've got that residue. And in my country, we do a lot of oil production. So we have this thing called mud, which isn't really mud. It's actually a combination of some red chemicals like barite and other stuff. So in this Procedures and Arrangement Manual, if we're cleaning these tanks, if we have residues in these tanks, we need to ventilate these tanks. This is an important manual for referencing, because it tells of how the vessel is dealing with these sorts of chemicals on board. Of course, HSE control measures for things like the Procedures Manual, they come in under HSE. The crew on board normally deal with this. That's not a problem. But if you have a foreign ship that comes into your port and there are any issue and is carrying some of these bad chemicals, then this is where you'd want to interact with the issue of what's going on board. That's the manual go to. Of course, the flag of that ship will also be interrogating and making sure that people are maintaining whatever needs to be maintained, and that has been identified in these manuals, in that manual. There's some associated code, just to mention to you all. These are big, long documents, carry a lot of information that the IMO has developed through other UN agencies, such as the IBC code, which is for carrying dangerous chemicals in bulk, the BCH code is a chemical code. Just to mention it, they're really difficult to read. If you interact with the maritime sector, then okay, you may want to get familiar, but it's just to mention it to you also, that you know that there are other codes associated with the carriage of chemicals and dangerous goods. Annex III, okay, Annex III. Well, this is the rat poison annex. This is for packaged goods that are carried in package form. Well, I suppose if you work on a port, you may get into contact with this, because on a port or in a port facility, you may have chemicals that are being sent out in some sort of package form, as in plastic, something, I suppose, hopefully not plastic, but maybe steel, in some container, because of the dangerous nature of the chemical. In that case, you need to be very aware of all of the signage, which is connected to ISO, the ISO standards associated with goods that are in package form and are dangerous. Of course, read your package labels. Don't get on that port without making sure that you're aware of the symbols for corrosive chemicals, carcinogenic chemicals, chemicals that are flammable, and to be able to treat, quarantine, isolate these packages if you think they're going to pollute our marine environment. The IMDG code is your guide for what the symbols and signage should be on these chemicals. The IMDG code is the gold standard for identifying all of the dangerous goods that are transported by ships. By the way, did I tell you all that everything in the world, apart from people on airlines, is transported by ship? Well, and some railways, but mostly by ship. Yeah. So the IMDG code is something that you need to be aware of if you're dealing at all with a port facility and you've got goods in package form. This is the crappy one. This is Annex IV. This is about the control of sewage. Now, let me bring you back to climate change. The acidification of the world's oceans is contributing to climate change. That crappy stuff does not help us when it comes to mitigating against the effects of climate change. So Annex IV devotes itself to the control of pollution by sewage into our oceans. Now, not only is there an issue to deal with climate change, but we're all from the Caribbean. We all have gorgeous beaches. We should not be swimming in crap. So there are some measures that have been identified to control sewage. Now, you know, sewage is not just the stuff we flush, but it's also what we call black water and gray water, because, you know, even when people have a shower or they wash their wares, yeah, that's stuff we want to go away. We want that sink to drain away and disappear so it looks nice and clean. So we have to have some measures associated with controlling both black water, the real crappy stuff, and gray water, the stuff that we're washing off our clothes and dirty plates, etc., to make sure that we are not adding to the acidification of the world's oceans. The whales are depending on us, and the dolphins, and all those nice fish that we like to eat and we don't want to get cancer from. So just to be conscious. Untreated sewage, of course, brings a whole other medical issue. You know, we've had a pandemic. Cholera was partly associated with issues to do with bacteria. So what we want to do is make sure that we control the sewage, and more so for health reasons, untreated sewage, because that's what really smells. So, would you believe another special area recognized by the world, but the Caribbean isn't there? But never mind, we'll get there. I'm just here to raise awareness because some of this stuff, we in the Caribbean, we've got sensitive environments, we need to think. So the Black Sea has been identified as a special area for sewage. We'll get there eventually. And we have to be particularly careful with untreated or raw sewage, because that's a real body. Okay, with Annex IV, how we tried to treat with it was by making sure that the ships are outfitted with another set of equipment. So what we have on ships is what is called sewage treatment plants or sewage holding tanks. And from the drawing, as you can see, we set up some limits for where we can put sewage. Now, all of our islands have these wonderful yachties. Most of them are good guys, but you know, we have to be careful where we put boats, and we have people swimming, and making sure that they have adequate measures to mitigate against the issue of us swimming in some toilet paper and messy stuff. So in that case, in terms of mitigating measures, the IMO saw that, okay, if you're over 400 tons, you can certainly be a big boaty, but that does not preclude the issue of us taking measures or instituted measures for smaller vessels. Yeah, if you have a sewage treatment plant, yeah, well, you know, we try to keep you more than 3 nautical miles out. If you don't, and you just like, you know, grinding up that poopy thing and put in some disinfectant to try and clean it up a little bit, hey, more than 12 miles out, you know, let's keep you way out there. And of course, oops, sorry about that. Yeah, right. And if you really, 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 like the yachties, maybe they should be 12 miles out, have to do poopy stuff that you're not treating, then we want you to do it way out in the ocean. And let's pray for the shrimp. So let's go on. Oops, daisy. I didn't move. Oh, oopsie, oopsie, whoopsie. Right, control measures when it comes to sewage tank capacities that we make sure that we control that, because the people who deal with untreated sewage, we definitely don't want them coming into our ports and saying, well, you know, my sewage tank is full, got to do something about it. And also making sure to facilitate, if that does occur, that we have port facilities that have reception facilities for sewage. And it's something that we're very, very, very much lacking in the Caribbean. Reception facilities when it comes to stuff like that. Okay, Annex V is garbage. That's a climate change big issue. Garbage, and particularly plastics. Yeah, it is our worst nightmare when it comes to climate change. The world has to dump its garbage, yes, but not into our oceans. So we need, as HSE professionals, to be very, very conscious of all of the things: cargo residues, plastics, cooking oil, fishing gear, carcasses, because these things, when they get into our oceans, they wreak havoc. And if our oceans are in a mess, our planet cannot survive. It's the water on our planet that we must keep. It produces rain. We have to keep it healthy. The fish. Okay, enough of that. So the issue of garbage is really critical. And just to tell you, whisper thing in your ears, the Caribbean right now is involved in a thing called making sure we implement the Minamata Convention. Remember I told you about this, the Minamata Convention, which is seeking to try and control mercury, which is a very heavy metal, getting into our oceans. I keep praying that in the Caribbean we can keep it together and do much more to make sure implementation of the Minamata Convention in the Caribbean is successful. But Annex V, like I say, all about garbage. We need to, so special areas, oh, finally, we made it. At least with garbage, we've got something to hold on to. So all us Caribbean brothers and in Trinidad and Tobago, yes, garbage is something that we're on the map with. We're a special area for garbage. That means we're supposed to collectively treat garbage as a serious issue. Segregation, processing, and ensuring that it does not get into our marine environment. And that includes our wetlands. Wetlands are one of the things that really do help our oceans keep in balance. So just to mention that quickly in case we have any marine biologists in our crowd. Okay, mitigation and measures in Annex V, of course, will be reception facilities for garbage. And also in the Caribbean, we're not really into this thing of segregating garbage, and not many of us have a receptacle for plastics, glass, paper, blah, 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 blah. But we got to get into it, because without our recycling of garbage, unfortunately, we're just dumping it. And one of the issues with garbage, which is not talked a lot about, is that for climate change, we've got all these greenhouse gases that we like to talk about, NOx, SOx, CO2, blah, blah. But you know what? Methane is a big issue. Where do we get methane from? Every time we go, that's why I actually do love COVID, because when we go to the restaurant and we're finished our meal that we didn't like, the chef takes it out of the kitchen, puts it in the garbage, it goes in the ground. And do you know what? Methane is one of our biggest greenhouse gas issues. So to be able, for us in the Caribbean to be able to control this, what do we do with our garbage? How do we treat it is very important, especially for climate change. Okay, so garbage disposal is something we need to focus on more. All you HSE professionals, we have these nice things where people go around on beaches and they're picking up pieces of plastic. Hey, that's just the tip of the iceberg. Every type of garbage has to be properly processed. Easier for us to segregate and recycle, but all of it has got to be dealt with. When I was in secondary school, they say matter is neither created or destroyed. It simply changes form. We need to make sure that we have some changing form issues in terms of our garbage. instead of our marine life having to deal with pure plastic or pure any of the things that we throw away. Okay, so I spoke about this, we'll get there eventually, segregation of garbage. On ships, that's what we're doing right now. On ships, the MARPOL Convention requires under Annex V for all ships to segregate their garbage, process their garbage. That's wonderful. So the ship reaches to our port and everything is segregated. The glass, the bottles, the paper, down to e-waste now, would you believe? But then they come to a port in the Caribbean and what do? We dump it all into one bin. Let's get more aware of it, HSE professionals. Let's just talk about it. Let's get our politicians to listen. Climate change is real. What is real is that we actively do something about it. Okay, so onboard measures for ships, of course, they're implementing segregatory recycling. Now, us HSE professionals, we've got to take it to the shore now and try and see how we could promote that on each one of the industrial sites that we work on. Okie dokie. We have a garbage record book, which is, of course, on the ships. That's where they record the types of garbage, what do they have, where they've sent it ashore. So the ships are doing their part. Now ashore, guys, we got to try and back that up and make sure those garbage issues reach to the appropriate places. In my country, we have a national agency for garbage. They're struggling to deal with the processing of segregated garbage, but if a lot more of us get behind that garbage truck, we can do it. Okay, so documentation of the garbage record book and making sure that it gets to reception facilities, and we make sure that in the reception facilities, we try to really process the garbage. Okay. Annex V also for garbage, because we're a special area, sets up a whole matrix of what can be done with what kind of garbage based on the special area. This is just a placard. I'm just showing it to you. You can take a look at it. I think they're going to keep my presentation. It's all good. Once it helps our planet and the continuance of our species, I'm happy. Take a look at it when you got time to see where we can discharge garbage and what kind of garbage. Okay, so that's the documentation. If you go on board or if you interact with it, this is what it's all about. Okay, Annex VI, oochie. This is about the air. Now, of course, big story. Climate change, greenhouse gases, acid rain, SO2, NOx, particulate matter. These are the issues that we should be focusing. Ozone depleting substances. You know, all of a sudden people are not talking enough about it. The depletion of our ozone layer is what is causing an increased prevalence of skin cancer. You know, these are the issues that are affecting our species right now, all of our Homo sapiens. So when it comes to the Annex VI is devoted to the prevention of air pollution from ships. Yeah, from ships. I'm a marine guy. And in this annex, of course, we have special areas. We made it, right? Caribbean Sea is a special area, but you know that Caribbean Sea is the United States Caribbean Sea. Don't get too excited. So it's around Puerto Rico, around the US Virgin Islands, but nothing around Barbados, nothing around Trinidad, nothing around Grenada, St. Lucia, all the rest. We need to lobby our governments. We need to make all of our islands special areas for marine pollution. It's what, for air pollution. It's what produces acid rain, is what strips our forests. We need to be conscious. Okay, the IMO and us marine guys, we're trying to do everything we can to see how we can mitigate against air pollution and the release of ozone depleting and also greenhouse gases into our atmosphere. And in 2020, we made a big leap and we introduced what's called the sulfur cap. So we have now written a convention that hopefully all governments will adopt to say that we should not have fuels like the diesels that you put in your trucks that has more than 0.1% sulfur, this ultra low sulfur. It's now up to us to make sure that as HSE professionals, wherever we can, we make sure that all of our machinery, heavy machinery, is using ultra low sulfur fuels. And when it comes to NOx, to make sure that we have proper emission controls on all our engines, because Climate change is real. Protecting that air is real. It will affect your great-grandchildren. Now, of course, the implementation of onboard documentation. The IMO has now started a thing called the Energy Efficiency Management Plan to even not just, the first was reducing the sulfur, but the other thing now is trying to reduce the amount of fuel we use to conserve. You know, you all should consider buying a hybrid next year, because all of this will add to the longevity of our planet and the existence of our species. Of course, we in the marine sector, we're doing all sorts of clever stuff. We're trying to get into biofuels for ships. We're trying to scrub or wash out a lot of the bad gases using exhaust gas cleaning systems, because we've got big engines on ships. So we're trying to push ahead and trying to clean up our act insofar as air pollution is concerned. Something that you all just need to be aware of. In my country, we're recently now involved in the writing of a marine pollution bill that will incorporate all of this great stuff. And it's all about making sure our great-grandchildren make it through to the next century. Of course, HSE, yes, if you interact with ships, it's about making sure that the crew, hopefully they're good crew, are doing their bit in terms of all of the things I've spoken about. Ultra-low sulfur fuel, making sure we have exhaust gas cleaning, and making sure that we're not overdoing the issue of running engines. That's why COVID was so great. COVID actually stopped a lot of the engines from running in the world. That was a wonderful plan. But do you know, we stopped the world for 2 years and our temperature did not go down. It stayed the same. So 2 years of COVID was not enough. But if we all collectively get together and address issues like this, maybe we can make a difference. Because climate change is the greatest threat to our existence in our short history on this planet. The less we do to address climate change now, the closer our planet and the continued existence of our species moves towards the point of extinction. 1.5 degrees has been said by the scientists to be the point of no return. It doesn't matter what we do. If we hit 1.5, it doesn't matter what. It's cataclysmic. Ocean levels will rise. There's nothing we can do. And we can pray. That's what we can do. And our current status is the Earth is currently at 1.25 degrees above what it should be. Guys, thank you very much for tolerating me for so long. I hope I didn't bore you all. And thank you, IOSH, for allowing me to present a very, very short snippet of what MARPOL and the prevention of pollution in the marine environment is all about. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Courtney, for that, that presentation. It was very engaging, and look at the comments. People appreciated your delivery method on a Friday afternoon. We do have one question that came up through the chats, and it was with respect to MARPOL and its prevention of pollution in the environment. The EMA has the water pollution rules in terms of enforcement, jurisdiction, litigation, etc. Is there any overlap, or is it something completely independent and separate?
You know, the EMA has been described as a tiger without any teeth. They're a wonderful entity. They were set up as an environmental management authority. The restrictions of the EMA are that when we wrote the charter for the EMA, we did not write into it definitive measures. So they deal with CECs, but when it comes to control and monitoring, you know, if you read the act, it doesn't really get there. With the IMO and our Maritime Administration, we've been given, through MARPOL, which is an international convention, a direct framework to deal with. So the EMA is somewhat preventative and addresses some stuff, but it doesn't deal with direct control. Exactly what do you need, what must you have in terms of equipment to prevent? And that's the difference between the maritime type conventions and legislation and the EMA. The EMA is sort of a watchdog, but it is not a doer and a preventer.
Okay. Okay, great. One of my personal takeaways from this session was the importance of dangerous goods awareness and shipping containers and labels. I think that takeaway could be for anyone who works around chemicals, whether it be receiving, utilizing, anything that is received in terms of how it is labeled, the symbols used, and it should be a great refresher to prompt everyone, if you're not familiar with those symbols, to really look at them and familiarize themselves. So I think that is it. I don't know if there's any closing words from Jason or any of the other executive EC members on. Jason?
Hi, Rishi. There's another question in the chat.
Okay. So you see, there's so many comments, Mr. Lange, about your delivery and such a great presentation. That other question may have been lost.
Really? Well, thank you very much. I haven't been watching the chat.
Right. The other question was, what is the major type of maritime pollution in the Caribbean?
Our biggest problem in the Caribbean is actually garbage. Yeah, garbage. Garbage is there's a runoff from the land that we can't control. So the stuff that we put in rivers gets to the sea. That's the problem. So anytime we leave a plastic bottle anywhere, it gets into the sea. And that plastic takes 450 years to degrade. And when it degrades into microplastics, which does not disappear. It affects our whole ecosystem. So garbage, especially plastics, I wish my country would ban the use of plastics, but we can still get it at every Massey store, free with your groceries.
Got you. Okay, so I think that's it for the questions. Again, Mr. Lange, I would like to thank you for your presentation and taking the time out to share the role of MARPOL in the prevention of maritime pollution, and certainly opened my eyes, and I'm sure lots of people who are not familiar with the maritime industry and MARPOL to do a little reading and a little digging to make sure that if we do need to interact with the ports, that we do have systems in place and aware of these systems and can add value as HSE professionals. So thank you again, and to everyone who has been on the meeting today. The presentation would be uploaded to the IOSH Caribbean branch in the next couple of weeks. There is a hyperlink in the chat, so you can save that on your favorites and then come back to it in a few weeks' time and review the presentation there. So again, thanks everyone, and do enjoy the rest of the evening.
Thank you, Rishi. Good evening, everyone. Thank you.